meeting recording is in progress. And today we are going to talk about IELTS TOEFL CELPIP, and actually it's going to be for 2 sessions. And you get familiar with these 3 international exams. So here's my question. Do you have any experience? Have you ever taken any of these exams?
No,
No, I didn't.
No, never. Oh, okay.
IELTS is, I practiced one time at my English class.
Oh, okay. Which one? Which one you practice?
For IELTS listening test.
For IELTS. Yes,
Yeah.
I know, especially IELTS is very popular in Asia and Europe. That's
Oh,
right.
not Asia, in here, in Canada.
Yes, and also Canada.
Okay.
So before starting, I wanna you look at this picture for my warm up and guess the expressions. Okay, so thank you for that. Now, what is the purpose of different tests? Why we have different, we have different kinds of tests like placement tests, diagnostic tests, proficiency tests. So purpose of the tests, different tests are different. Since we have variety of tests, like proficiency tests, usually, do you have any idea what is it measuring?
Just to see the level that you are at.
Mm-hmm. When you want to put the students in different levels, you take placement tests. Yes. Proficiency test shows how well you know the language. So maybe they're at the elementary level or intermediate or advanced. And diagnostic test goes to there's a diagnostic test for this course. It means how well they learn. It's like achievement test, how well they learn the subjects and how well they learn the material and how well they can use those material, how active the knowledge is for the students. So you can understand the strength and weakness. So we call it diagnostic test. Achievement test, it goes to specific terms. For example, you study vocabulary book, then there's a test for that vocabulary work. It's not for your general knowledge, only what you learn in that course. We call it achievement test. Okay? But placement test just ask general questions for that language. It's like a general knowledge test. So put you in different levels. Proficiency test shows how master you are in that language. Are you like semi-native or you're beginners? So there are different tests, and the aim is different. But the style of the questions are different, timing is different, and type of the questions are different. So, but all of them goes for problem solving. Look at this chart. The first part, which is very popular, like Cambridge English qualifications, is work on general knowledge in your English language. So A1 and A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. A1, A2 goes to basic level, which means elementary and pre-intermediate. B1, B2, it's a time that your learners are independent. They can go and talk in a society or in an English language community. It's like intermediate, upper intermediate. But when they get to C1, C2, it's a proficiency level, which is advanced, and C2 like CPE level. So they talk like native speakers. And there are different assessments for children, for adults, or even in business course. So CAT, PET goes to pre-intermediate and intermediate, FCE to upper intermediate, CAE to advanced, and CPE to C2. For business is the same. preliminary, vantage, and higher. Higher means they're very good in business. It's good to know the level of your students, because when they want to study for IELTS or TOEFL, it's not only techniques. 70% is their knowledge of that language. If they are at the level of, look here, if they are at the level of upper intermediate, they can get up to 6.5 in IELTS. If they say, I need 7, so their knowledge in English should be at the level of advanced. It's impossible to get 7 when you're not an advanced student. It is very important because many of the students, ask you, okay, I need to get 6.5 or I need to get 7 because I want to study at university and I have only 6 months. So the very first thing you should do as a teacher is, okay, take the placement test. So the level should be advanced C1. Then you practice the techniques, or they learn, even they are upper intermediate, they have a chance to get there. But if the level is intermediate, that's impossible. Yes, Vianney.
Thank you. Are these exams just for people that want to, like, can you hear me well?
Yes, of course.
Oh, okay. For people that want to prove the level of English, or applies to any other language?
No, this is what I'm saying is for English, because IELTS and TOEFL are for English proficiency. Yes, Vianney, you have another question? No. So, for example, in German, it's different. Okay, A2 and B1, because I study German, so there is another test. And I'm sure in Spanish and in Japanese, you have the other proficiency tests. Okay, to show the level. But what we are talking today, we're talking about IELTS TOEFL and CELPIP because they are very common and popular in Canada. If you want to stay in Canada as a resident, you need to take one of these tests. If you want to study in Canadian university as an international student, you need to take one of these tests. So that's why we're discussing here. And you're teachers, so you will have many students who want to take IELTS, TOEFL, or CELPIP. So the very first step is you take the placement test and know the level of your students. Then you can give better suggestions and recommendations to your students how much time they need to get to that grade for their IELTS or for their TOEFL, which is okay for all the university because they usually put the marks, okay, that they expect from the students in the undersides, and you can what you need to take, so you can easily search and find it. So what is CELPIP? CELPIP goes to the Canadian English Language Proficiency Index program. There's a general English language proficiency test, and there are 2 tests to take. General listening and speaking test is for the ones who wants to get PR in the country, or they use it for citizenship applications. And it takes only for 1 hour to complete. And you take the listening and speaking in one sitting, no separate speaking sessions. But the other one, you have to take all skills, and it takes about 3 hours. Okay, give me a minute. I can share the sample for you with you guys. So here's a site that you can see everything. The link is here, celpip.ca, the format. I can share it in the chat box with you guys. Chat here, so you can see it, the link. I put the link in the chat box. Have you received it?
Yeah.
Good. So when you open it, there are different parts. So the format shows the different between general, and CELPIP and General LC. It's not it's very expensive comparing to IELTS TOEFL, which is more than $300.
Ilham, do they
So
expire?
I'm sorry, it
Do they
takes 2
expire?
years. Yeah,
Oh,
the same.
okay.
Usually proficiency tests expire, except Cambridge test. Cambridge text FCCA, UCT, or CAT-PAT. There's no expiry time. And this is $280 plus taxes. For listening and speaking is $195. And for general one, which is for residency and citizenship, it takes about 1 hour. And the other one is used for, also it's used for permanent residents. So you need to check which one you need and entering the university. So it lasts for 3 hours. So in general, you have listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Listening lasts for 47 to 55 minutes, but reading about an hour, and writing is about an hour, speaking up to 20 minutes. In general, listening, the same, speaking 20 minutes, and about an hour, less than an hour, mostly 50 minutes for listening. Here you can see the different questions that you have in the listening part, and also this reading kind of style of questions, and the writing. So in writing, you only have to write an email, and there's a questions and responding to a survey, and you have to write for that. Speaking, there are different advice. I mean, you have different tasks, like giving advice, talking about your personal experience, describing a scene, making predictions. And the other one, listening and selfie for listening and speaking, is the same. The listening and speaking part is the same, and you don't need to get writing or reading. I have also the sample of questions, which I want to share it with you.
And do you know if we have to take one of those even if we are not intending to teach English? Like in my case, that it is going to be a Spanish, I don't think that I need to check them, correct?
Oh, no, this is for English.
Okay.
Okay, so you can compare the grades in CELPIP and IELTS. So 10 means 8.5. And 9 is 8, okay, in listening. So 10 in reading is like IELTS 8, and 10 in writing like 7.5 in IELTS, and speaking 10 means 7.5. So many students, this is the experience only with me and my students. They believe CELPIP is much easier for them, especially the ones who are very fluent in speaking. The ones who are very fluent and accurate in speaking, so they prefer CELPIP. But that is only me, back to my students' experience. I haven't seen any data on it, which one is easier to tell. Okay, so that goes for CELPIP. Once more, it's Canadian English Language Proficiency Test. So maybe you don't find it in Asia and Europe, but still you can take the exam in Asia. So I know in Turkey, many people go and take it, because especially the ones who want to immigrate to Canada. But what about TOEFL? Okay, so TOEFL stands for Test of English as a Foreign Language. So it tests your ability to communicate in English in a specifically academic, university, and classroom-based setting. So you can find it in all universities. If you want to apply for as an international student, they ask either for TOEFL or IELTS. And it's accepted by over 8,500 institutes across 130 countries. Very popular, especially in North America. Very, very popular, but also in UK and Australia. And TOEFL is administered by US-based organization, the Educational Testing Service. And so it is conducted in American English. I can say 90% is American accent. And we have CBT versus IBT. IBT is more popular and common these days. So it's internet-based. If IBT goes with internet-based, CBT is computer. And both are the same. Both evaluate your English language proficiency in academic context. There's no general. There is general for CELPIP and IELTS, but not for TOEFL. TOEFL is only academic. And so when you take the exam, it's combined listening, reading, speaking, or writing. But in IBT, your institute can access to the site, and you can take it in with your institute. But both is computer-based. So if even you get CBT, you have to go to the center and take it on computer. The format is listening lasts for 40 to 60 minutes, 30 to 50 questions. And you have a break time for 5 minutes. Then you get to the reading, which is 70 to 90 minutes, 44 to 55 questions. And writing is only 30 minutes, and there's one topic. But in this exam, TOEFL, I recommend it to the ones who are very good in listening and speaking. Very good in listening and speaking. They can get a very good mark in TOEFL. But what about IELTS? We have different exams for IELTS, general and academic. And it goes for International English Language Test. And it's used for educational, immigration, occupational purposes. Even if you want to work in the countries that the first language is English, even you want to work, you need to have IELTS. And it's accepted by over 10,000 institutions across 140 countries worldwide. It's owned by British Council, IDP, IELTS Australia, and Cambridge Assessment English. So you heard up to 75% accent is in English and British. But still, you can hear American, Australian, Malaysian, Indian accent as well. But 75% is British. And the spelling and everything is British. So since in Canada, you see the British spelling and accent, so it's not very difficult for Canadian people. They don't need to get the IELTS, but if you need it in Canada, so it's easy for you to, because it's Canadian are familiar with British English. So basically, it's an international language test, and but you can have it in US spelling as well. So if you write in US spelling, it's fine. Don't you think you have to spell it in UK spelling? No, you can write in US spelling, which is fine. You have it for academic and general. They are two different. But what is the difference is in academic, the speaking is the same, the listening is the same. General for the ones who want to immigrate or work somewhere else. So the reading and writing is different. Writing in academic format, you have to write a report about a graph or process and essay. In general IELTS, you have the essay, which is the same, but for the task one, you have to write an email. Different kinds of email, like invitations, like requests, asking for information, so different kinds of email. And the reading for academic format, there are 3 passages, academic passages to read and do the exercises, which are different questions you have and in different format. But for general, there are short passages from general reading stuff like magazines and brochures and these things. So only the reading part and the task one writing is different. The rest is the same. So today we're going to talk about only two parts, speaking and listening, comparing IELTS and TOEFL, since they are very common. So in the speaking part, it's face-to-face with an examiner. So usually it happens in different days. One day you set the appointment for a speaking session and one day for a written session. Speaking lasts for 13 to 15 minutes. But remember, in TOEFL, it's recorded. So when we say it is computer-based, so it's recorded. You hear a dialogue or you hear a question, and then you have to say it through your microphone, and it's recorded. So it's not face-to-face session. And it takes about 20 minutes. So that's why I said, if you have a very good listening, if you are very good in speaking, you can get a very good mark in TOEFL. Because it matters most, you know? Listening and speaking very important in TOEFL exam. And it happens usually, the speaking session also, it's always on the same day as the rest of the exam. Since I said different days, mostly, but in TOEFL it's the same, like CELPIP, it's the same day. You can hear different accents, so it depends on the examiner. Sometimes even the examiner has Turkish accent, Persian accent, Indian accent, Australian accent, and Canadian American, so it depends, different accent. But in the TOEFL, since you hear it, it's always American accent, always American. What about your score? They record what you're saying, and the score will be determined by single. I mean, the examiner. I'll come to you in a minute.
Just a minute. No.
Yeah.
But
Okay. So, but if you have any objections, okay, for your mark, somebody else, another examiner, listen to the recording and assist you again. Otherwise, the examiner that you took the exam with give you the mark. But what happened in TOEFL is there will be determined by a group of 6 reviewers. There's 6 reviewers. They assess you. You don't see anyone because it's recorded, but later there are going to be 6 reviewers to give you the mark. Do you have any question for speaking part?
No.
No, it's clear. Okay, here's the sample for IELTS. So there are 3 parts. Part 1, ask general questions like your town, your work, your studies, neighbors, entertainment time. So it's just general talking, and ask you 4 to 5 questions. Then part 2, it's a cue card or cue questions. And they give you a card. So they put you, the card does put you in a situation that asks you some question about that situation. Here's that. Describe a very difficult task that you succeeded in doing as a part of your work or studies. Then you should say what the task you did, why this task was very difficult, how you worked on the task, and explain how you felt when you had successfully complete this task. The examiner gives you 1 minute to think and take notes. They prepare pen and paper for you, so you can take notes. After a minute, you have to answer to all this and explain all the questions on the card and explain everything in 2 minutes. So you have to cover everything. If you can, sometimes they ask you after 2 minutes, but it's examiner who can stop you. But never you're given more than 2 minutes. Then part 3, it's a discussion topic. So more subjective kinds of questions. So you can bring up reasons. It's not only explaining reasons, examples, comparing things. So here said, what are the most difficult jobs that people do? Or why do you think some people choose to do that? What about in old times and recent times? So you have to compare it. Do you think people were more successful in the past than now? So this kind of test. And at least I usually say to my students, at least you need to give 7 to 8 sentences because you need time to explain, give reason, bring up examples, you know, if you want to get good marks over 7. So that's an example for this one. And here is a speaking band description for public. The one that the examiner has is more specific, but you can easily find and download it from IELTS.org, www.ielts.org. You can see the sample, you can see some suggestions how to improve in speaking or listening or other skills. And there are sample of exam, which is free. You can go and take that free test, parts of the test actually, not the whole test. And speaking band description, so it talks to you that how you get a good mark. So give me a minute, I can share it with you guys. So it's good to tell your students that there are 4 criteria: fluency and coherence, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy, and pronunciation. So can you tell me what does it mean, fluency and coherence?
You can speak related and also understandable.
And fluency means without pauses, fluent.
Yeah, fast. Yeah.
So 25% of your score goes to each column. So fluency and coherence, 25%. Lexical resource means uses vocabulary with full flexibility, not repetitive, no repetition, not repeated words, you know. Idiomatic language. So do you remember I said using idioms, it's really impact your score. So that's the thing. And grammatical range, different grammar range and the structures, also pronunciation. So by pronunciation means the stress and intonation, right rhythm. So I see many students, they only works on grammar and lexical resource. So it's only 50%. But the rest 50, because each column 25%. So the other 50 goes to fluency and coherence and pronunciation. Pronunciation really important, especially in TOEFL as well. Very, very important. Not the accent, pronunciation. Correct the stress. Pronounce it clearly, understandably. But an accent, it doesn't matter. Okay? So to get 9 or 8 and 7, you can read it and see how well you need to speak. For universities in Canada, you usually need between 6 to 7, depends on the major. Between 6 to 7. For master, 7 to 8, like some majors they ask for 8, but most of them 7. So how well you need to speak the language, you can read it here. Good? Any questions for this part? Is that clear? So guys, give me a minute. Okay, once more. So let me explain this part again. So here, this is the band description for public version. ICE Examiner has another version, which is more in details, okay? There are 4 criteria for speaking tests, which 25% of the whole mark goes to each criteria: fluency and coherence, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy, and pronunciation. So as you see, there's nothing for accent, so don't worry for the accent. Fluency and coherence, it's a part that how fluent the student is. okay, or examining. No pauses, no and what he said or what the examinee said is related to the questions, okay? Lexical resources, a range of vocabulary, using vocabulary with flexibility and precisely. Grammatical range uses all range of structures and how well they are in using different structures. And it should be accurate, of course. And pronunciation, so correct pronunciation with correct stress, intonation, and rhythm also matters. Good? So in this 4 criteria, they get marked and 25% for each. So I see many students, they go for only vocabulary and grammar, which is 50% of the test. But also when they learn vocabulary, they should learn the pronunciation well. And also they have to work on their fluency and understanding the questions to answer related, okay, to the question. Now give you a minute. Okay, so we have the rubric for the listening. What about for the speaking, sorry. What about the listening in IELTS and TOEFL? So IELTS listening goes around 30 minutes, but in TOEFL it's about 60. In IELTS, there are 4 parts, and it includes the conversation, lecture, again, conversation, and a lecture. But in TOEFL, 1 to 3 conversation, 4 to 6 lectures, because it lasts for 60 minutes, which are related to university life. It's all academic. So, for example, there was a conversation between a student and librarian about finding research materials or doing projects. There are various types of questions in IELTS, including matching, multiple, or fill in the blanks. But in TOEFL, all questions are multiple choice, and that's about important details, inferences, tone, vocabulary, but they are all multiple choice. And written, there are written questions as well, and spelling matters. So even if you understand the listening and you know the answer, or the examiner knows the answers, but the written part, or there's a problem in spelling, or they're writing incorrectly, the examiner loses the mark. Okay? And they have to transfer. The examiner have to transfer all the answers onto an answer sheet. But in TOEFL, the examiners will be asked to take notes. They can take notes while listening, but answer the questions afterwards online, you know, on computer. So for IELTS, part 1, it's about social topic. 2 speakers talk about their neighborhood, like how to make a reservation in a hotel or for a taxi or Uber. This is a social topic. Part 2 is social topic, but monologue, like a person talks about the zoo in your city, or it's a different entertainment part. Part 3 is academic. 3 to 4 speakers talk about your project or about university life. And part 4, it's a monologue like about how to use the library on the campus, or what about the field trip about. So there's a monologue, which is the most challenging part in IELTS. This part 4, and it's a longer part. So it lasts for 30 minutes. Then in written form, because in IELTS there is computer form and written form of the exam. In written form, you have to listen for 30 minutes. Then you have 10 minutes to transfer all the answers from the booklet onto answer sheets. And there are 40 questions, 10 for each part, because there are 4 parts. And there's always always in order, like first 2-person social topic, then monologue, social topic, then 2, 3, or sometimes 4 people talking about academic topic, and the last one, the monologue speech. They hear it once, and variety in English accent, but 75% British accent. Types of questions, it's like completion of flowchart, multiple choice, summary completion, sentence completion, labeling, diagram or map, short answer questions, and classification. In general, if you want to put it in three groups, so we can say gap filling, multiple questions, and matching. In IBT listening section, so it's designed to measure your ability to understand conversation and lectures in English. So it includes basic comprehension, understanding the speaker's attitude and degree of certainty, connecting information. So you hear lectures and conversation in this section, and it's both use campus-based language, 3 to 4 lectures, some with classroom discussion. Each listening lasts for 3 to 5 minutes, 6 questions per lecture, 2 to 3 conversation, each lasts for 3 minutes, 5 questions per conversation. And you can take notes of any audio item through the rest to help you understand the questions. And you have time 41 to 75 minutes to complete this section. If you want to see the sample, you can go to www.etc.org TOEFL test takers. So we can see the sample. And so easily you can go there and see the sample. Then you listen to the part, then you follow the questions and answering. So here I bring a sample of that page. You see how it looks like. What about comparing IELTS to TOEFL score? So 9 in IELTS equals 118 to 120 in TOEFL. And students usually goes for 6.5 or 6 to 7. So 6 is going to be 60 to 75 in TOEFL. And 7 is between 94 to 101 in TOEFL score. Most university accept both, TOEFL and IELTS both. So what matters is vocabulary and grammar. Do you remember I told you that the level, their knowledge, also it's very, very important. I can say 70% is their ability to use the language correctly. Then they can learn the techniques and practice the techniques. But the knowledge is the basic part to get the good, that's a base to get a good mark. So your student needs to work on vocabulary and grammar, which is 50% of each exam. So in next session, we are going to discuss how to help your students to improve their knowledge of that English language. So how to practice vocabulary and grammar with them. Also, we are going to talk about 2 other skills, reading and writing, for the next session. So far, if you have any questions, it's a time to ask.